Hi, everyone. Welcome to Denman's Den. I want to begin my time with you today, first of all, by reminding you of who I am, why I started this channel, and what my focus is as I am continuing to learn and grow in communicating a message that I feel led, called, and even compelled to share with you. Um, and I think that laying the groundwork in any relationship of communication is always an important and regular thing to do. And I hope this evening that this will be the beginning of a good habit that I start of always laying the groundwork for or what I will share and why I will share it before I start each session. So, first of all, I call this place Denman's Den because it is my quiet, cozy, and committed place where I do my writing and where I share my thoughts and reflections with all of you. I also call it Denman's Den because Denman is my last name. I have learned that when I, or really any of us, give something a name, I immediately begin to enter into a relationship with it. And this is what I hope can happen with all of you who listen to my broadcasts or read my pages or blogs, that we can enter into a relationship together that can be informative, caring, eventually full of the give and take of dialogue and people talking together. And I want to learn from you whenever that dialogue happens, always. Now, my name is Kathleen, and you'll see it on my Facebook page as Kathleen Ann with an E, Denman. But truthfully, very, very few people call me that. I can think of two exceptions in my life. The first one being my mom when I was a little girl, and she wanted me in the house, or she was angry with me about something. My whole name would come out. Kathleen Ann, you get yourself in this house this instant, you know. So that was the first exception. And then the second one would be really any government agencies or other institutions where I am required to use my full formal given name. I am called Kathleen, but 98% of the time, I am just Kathy to everyone else, and that I really want that to include all of you. I am a mother and a grandmother, an aunt and a sister-in-law. I am also widowed. I am college educated. At the undergraduate level, I have a degree in music and in education. And at the postgraduate level, I have a Master's of Divinity from a Chicago Theological Seminary and a Master's of Psychology from a California State University. I have lived in other countries, and so I speak a couple of languages besides English as well. My first real career was as a chaplain, and I served at major trauma hospitals in the Chicago area and northern Illinois, as well as at a maximum security prison in the same location, northern Illinois. And in that capacity, I have seen more pain, suffering, agony, misery, and death than anyone should ever see in a lifetime. And I have had children and the elderly die in my arms. I have cried and prayed with more people than I could ever count. And I have struggled myself with what Winston Churchill used to refer to as the black dog of depression trailing him. He used to say that it was frequently nipping at his heels and once or twice knocking him down in its quest to get his attention. That black dog has also been my companion on the journey of life. And with Churchill as my example, I can say, along with him, in his words, not mine, that the presence of that black dog is painful at times for me, he said, but bearable always. And that I join him in making that observation. Throughout my life, I have always enjoyed writing, and for years and years, I've kept a journal since high school, actually. Truthfully, I never thought I was good enough to publish anything that I wrote, but I always enjoyed researching things and reflecting on what I was learning while I was doing the research and then writing those things down. Um, However, in retirement, um, with the encouragement and support of my very best friend, Von Rees, a few things were published that I have written, much to my surprise. And when that happened, I set out on a journey into utilizing the resources of the internet to continue, trying to communicate and reflect my thoughts with a wider audience, with all of you. Now, I'd like to address the message that I try to and I hope to share with all of you. I think because of the breadth and the depth of my life experience, which has not only included professional pain, anguish, and discrimination, as well as joy and achievement, but it has also included much personal pain, loss, anguish, joy, uh, healing, and love too. Um, Even now, just have just entered into my 70s, the decade of my 70s, and I have the daily challenge of continuing to learn to live with Parkinson's disease. But I've had that diagnosis about 28 years now, but I still uh, sit at the keyboard and I use my fingers to write. I make them move, even when it's a challenge. And I sit in my armchair and I make those same fingers move to make my embroidery, cross stitch, and fabric art creations. And sometimes at night before I go to bed, I quietly run my fingers through chords on my small piano that I have in my room. And no matter how much my hands tremble, my fingers tremble, I do these things because I am not going to I'm not going to let a chronic illness stop me from living my life and enjoying my life. So I continue on. And I still go for walks. I go to groups that I enjoy and meetings that I enjoy, to church, and I meet with friends when I have that opportunity, and I actually on a daily basis do housework chores that I am still capable of doing, and to the best that I can, which is maybe not as good as sometimes I'd like, but I'm just grateful that I can still do them. So. And I have to say, with all of that all of my life experience, education, and continued learning is grist for the mill as I try to produce some informed, well-researched content upon which you and I can reflect together whenever I come on and share. Now, lately, my content has been more focused on politics, mainly because my country, the United States of America, is so polarized right now, politically. And also because whatever political affiliation or party a person may belong to anywhere in the world, it is becoming increasingly clear that the country of my birth is moving away from democracy to authoritarianism fairly rapidly. For the first time in the history of the United States, as a matter of fact, we are now on the global human rights watch list of and I think that's because of our rapid descent into authoritarianism and tyranny. And that statement and the observations behind it are being made by people in countries all over the world, not just by me. It's not my original statement. What I have just said is the actual truth about that. And therefore, I have felt compelled to address this issue regularly because, not just my fellow countrymen, my fellow United States of Americans, but people throughout the world are watching a democracy they thought they could count on as a bulwark of a democratic republic that works. They're watching it being taken apart piece by piece in an attempt to kill it and replace it with an oligarchy of billionaires led by a supposed so-called strongman dictator. So this evening, I am just going to briefly share with you that I did attend the No King's Day protests on Saturday in the city of Ensenada in Baja California in Mexico, which is my home and has been for, quite a while now. There were over 80 of us who came out to the Parque de la Revolucion to march, to talk, to share, to fellowship, and most of all, really, to stand up firm and courageous for democracy and for the country of which we are all still citizens and still call home, even though we are also immigrants here in Mexico. And, just so you know, we chanted in Spanish at least as much, if not more, than in English as we were marching around and carrying our signs. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido, which means the people united can never be divided or vanquished or conquered. And we were met with cheers from the locals in cars. They would stop, they would clap, they would give us thumbs up, and they would shout, "No mas Trump," no more Trump. And some of them even got out of the car and took pictures and asked permission before they did it, which I thought it's typical here. I mean, people are respectful and polite, and they don't just do it; they ask. So the sign you see behind me here, this side, okay, I got to remember I'm facing the opposite, is the one that I carried, and I made this myself. And as you can see, it's a satire on the Brady Bunch, except this administration is definitely the shady bunch, due to everything from illegal ICE raids to unlawful terminations of government employees to the Epstein files to the pardoning of insurrectionists to the horrors and lies of Project 2025 to Trump's constant pathological lying about everything in his life, including his meeting with President Zelensky today that degenerated into a shouting match, and Trump once again denying to help a nation that did nothing to deserve an unprovoked attack and a war. And as a democracy themselves, they need our support and assistance. And so I made this poster, and I didn't really have to explain it to any of the locals because most of them are well aware of the television show The Brady Bunch. It was voiced over and played here on Mexican television when in the pretty much the same era that it came on television when I think I was in high school when it started coming on in the United States. So they knew. They just I had to explain to them that shady rhymes with Brady and that it's basically means not just the shade of a tree, but the dark, people that are kind of dark and not honest, we call them shady. It kind of goes with the darkness of shade. So they understood that completely, and it was, the poster was a hit with the locals as well as with fellow Americans who obviously understood it very well. And the other thing that was absolutely insane yesterday and today was Trump's, off the docket AI generated video of crowning himself king, flying around a military jet and dropping bombs of excrement on United States citizens that were legitimately obeying the First Amendment right to peaceful protest and honoring this country in doing so. And that tells all of us, and the whole world really, just what kind of evil has entered into our government and therefore into the world as a whole. And it really tells you and I and the world exactly why he is the leader of the dark and shady bunch I portrayed in the poster you see behind me. But all I had to do was post an advertisement of the No King's Day on my Facebook page. Just an advertisement of an event, a local, basically a local event. It just said the time and the location, and I think people understood it was a protest, but it was also an event. It said there would be lunch afterward and all kinds of things. And I had posted it on my Facebook page, and interestingly enough, those who did not agree politically, instead of just saying, okay, well, it's not something that I'm going to go to, or just saying nothing at all, they came out of the woodwork to make it into a political dispute instead of the announcement that it was meant to be. And, I'm the kind of person that I will happily put up announcements of community events, even if it's not something that I would attend or that I may not prefer to attend. And I certainly do not detract from others when they put up announcements of things that I may not want to attend. Unfortunately, though, the atmosphere that has been created by the current administration encourages division, even when it is not asked for, not expected, and certainly not intended. And something else I noticed, that even when people who are of the same opinion and together for the same cause somehow cannot put aside their differences with one another over unrelated things to join together over a common cause, I recognize that too is part of what's going on in our world right now. And I noticed this in particular when I tried to greet a couple with whom I once had a disagreement, which was nearly 2 years ago and is a nearly 2 years old, thing that was just a small incident and not worth hanging on to. And I was glad to see them, and I wanted to tell them so, but I was fortunate to get the barest of greetings from the woman before she completely turned away from me and walked away. And her husband didn't even acknowledge my existence, even when while we were marching, I accidentally bumped into him. And even though I said I was sorry and excuse me, I didn't exist. He just was like I wasn't even there. So I share this just to point out that kindness, compassion, and civility are disappearing, whatever side that a person may be on. And that really is sad to see. And there are many reasons for it, and politics is only one of them, believe me. But in spite of this one incident, I had a great time. I talked to a lot of people and finally met a true cousin that I have here whose maiden name happens to be the same as mine. And, my maiden name is an uncommon one. It's directly from Italy. And this woman has the exact same maiden name as I do. And she has relatives in Italy just the same as I do. And I was able to finally meet her face to face, and that was a wonderful experience. I was also able to talk with and listen to a lot of local Mexicans about, a lot of things, including the politics of the United States, as well as spend time with many fellow Americans who were at the event. And so it was a very successful event and an enjoyable time in many ways for me personally. And always for democracy, of course, but really especially for doing our small but important part in keeping the United States of America a constitutional republic, which, as Benjamin Franklin said, keep it, if we can. So thank you so much for listening today, and please do comment, subscribe to my page if you want. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. And please come back to Denman's Den. I will always welcome you here. Thank you so much.